Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to talk about the Ice Warriors. The Ice Warriors are, of course, an interesting villain. They are a villain that is originally from classic Doctor Who and featured in a few stories there, and of course have showed up in modern Who as well during the Moffat era. My question is, do you think that the current Doctor Who show should bring the Ice Warriors back for a new adventure, a new story? The Ice Warriors are interesting to me. They're not exactly A-tier villains like, say, the Daleks, the Cybermen, and the Master, which are kind of the big three, but they are memorable villains. Like, you know who the Ice Warriors are when you hear them. And of course, they have had multiple appearances. And they have the interesting distinction of one, they haven't really been in a lot of adventures, despite the fact they've been around since the 60s, since the Troughton era. They haven't been in a lot of stories. They've been in about 6 stories, I believe, going from the TV show proper. Now, of course, there are audio adventures and novels they've been in. They were, of course, supposed to feature in the original season 23, Mission to Magnus or whatever it was, which I've read the novelization of and enjoyed. But they've only been in 6 TV stories proper. And the interesting thing about that is none of their stories are bad. I don't think any of their stories are bad. But I don't think any of their stories are just, home runs either, grand slams. None of them have just knocked it out of the park. I don't think any of their stories are necessarily essential viewing. They're varying levels of okay to good, really good. But none of them are just like, hey, have you seen that one? You really need to see that one, to me. But none of them are just what I would call bad stories either. So they all kind of fall in the middle somewhere between those two extremes in thought, between bad and like must see. They kind of fall in between. Now, and I can group them together actually with the sense that the weakest 2 for me are the Troughton 2, the middle 2 are the Peladon 2, and the best 2 are the modern Who 2. I mean, that's just the way they fall for me very easily. Let's look at them in order. I've talked about them before. The Troughton 2 are probably my least favorite, which is odd because I love the Troughton era, and I love Troughton's Doctor. I'm a huge fan of the second Doctor. But the Ice Warriors proper, their first story, their introduction story, it's not bad, but it kind of drags on a bit. It's a bit boring. It just kind of goes on. It didn't need to be 6 parts. And I think the animation for the 2 missing episodes is fine. It's just a bit boring and uninteresting. It's not bad by any means. I can get all the way through it. But I guarantee you I'm going to be fiddling on my phone a little bit while I'm getting all the way through it. It's kind of my least favorite Cybermen story. A step up from it is Seeds of Death, which is more interesting, and one of those stories I've talked about before that I'm always kinder towards on a rewatch. Like, I remember I did very much enjoy my last rewatch of it. There is actually some stuff going on in it, which I like. There is some silliness, like only one person knows how to build this T-mat, and they only have like one T-mat that controls it. There are plot issues there that if you stop and think about it, it's kind of silly. But again, I'm thinking of it more as a children's show, something children can connect with. So I don't need the plot to do the heavy lifting to enjoy this story, but there is definitely some plot problems that are a bit silly. I think the effects look fine. I like the guest cast a lot. I really empathize with some of the guest characters in this a bit and feel bad for them, especially the one guy that's kind of a coward, but he doesn't want to die. It's like, I feel bad for the guy because I understand that he's just scared. And to his credit, he does the right thing at the end. He gets killed for it, but he does the right thing to save the planet. So, he redeems himself. And then the other guy, the one that just out of nowhere is claustrophobic, but actually does a pretty good job in the story before he gets killed of taking out some of the Ice Warriors. I liked him a lot. It's a good story, but not one of the highlights necessarily of Season 6 for me. It is one of the ones that if I was having to sacrifice Season 6, which I talked about recently, it would probably be one of the ones I would let go. And then we move on to the Peladon stories, which are kind of the middle range for me. Now, I like both of them almost equally. When I was ranking them, I think they tend to rank almost right next to each other, with Curse slightly edging it out. Curse has the main advantage because it's shorter. I think Monster runs a little long at 6 points. I think Curse works at 4 parts, whereas Monster drags a little at 6. It's a good story. Now, I like Monster of Peladon for a couple reasons. One, I love how well Sarah Jane's written in it. Sarah Jane's my favorite companion. And she's written really well in this one. She's written pretty well in season 11 as a whole, I think. But in this one, she's written very strongly. She has a very clear character. And I like her dialogue and the actions she takes in this story. Whereas sometimes later in her classic run, she's written a little more generically. As much as I love her with Tom, and I do, she's written a little more generically. And I feel like she has more character in this. So Monsters always gets points for me because how well it handles Sarah Jane. It also gets points because I like the guest cast. I like the guy playing the engineer that I never trust. I like the girl playing the queen of Peladon a lot as well. And of course, John is putting in a good performance. And I like the story. And I like the fact that even though it makes the Ice Warriors a villain again, it does give the explanation of that they're just a rogue faction, so it's not the Ice Warriors as a whole. I like the fact it mentioned that at least. It at least gave a little bit of continuity there with Curse. Now, Curse I like better, because again, I like the guest cast. I like having David Troughton in. It's great having David Troughton as the king. He puts in a good performance. I like the fact it's shorter as well. And then I do enjoy the story. And the fact that the Ice Warriors are not the villains, and how even the Doctor himself jumps the gun on assuming they are. And not only do we as the audience learn a lesson, because we're also probably going, it's the Ice Warriors, but, you know, the Doctor learns a lesson there. And I like that. And then you have the two modern Who stories, which are my two favorite Ice Warrior stories. I think they're handled really well. I like Empress of Mars, where, again, the Ice Warriors aren't necessarily the bad guys there. I like that. The actress who plays the Empress is really good, just like the other kind of main Ice Warrior, the one with the missing eye, is really good. The guest cast I enjoy. Peter Capaldi's putting in a good performance. Bill's really good in it. Pearl Mackey's great in it as well. I find it a good story. And then you have Cold War, which is probably my favorite. It's very much Alien, but underwater. You know, you're in the sub, so it's got the claustrophobic elements. And then I kind of like how it comes full circle with Alien, because you could argue that the original Alien's kind of cribbing from the Ark in Space a little bit maybe. And so you kind of have Cold War? Cold War cribbing from Alien a little bit here with this thing, you know, in the shadows, reaching down and grabbing people. I like that. It's got David Warner in it. That's always a plus for me. I'm glad we got David Warner in the show proper. He's listening to 80s music, so I'm on for that as well. I love my 80s music. And then I also enjoy that the Doctor gets to use the red setting. I like the fact that it gives a good explanation of why the Ice Warriors look the way they do with their design. Because, let's be honest, the Ice Warriors design, while looking, you know, good for a 60s low-budget show, it's hard to modernize the Ice Warriors and keep that same design. But I didn't want the Ice Warriors redesigned like, say, the Silurians, because the Silurians' Modern Who redesign is awful, dreadful. So I like the fact they were able to keep the classic Ice Warrior design, which was the right choice, but it also explains why it looks that way by explaining they're wearing armor, that's armor. And the reason why they don't get out of it in the classic series is because it's very dishonorable. It's a very dishonorable thing for them to do, to leave their armor. I like that. It's clever, it works, and I totally buy it. And with him being out of his armor for a lot of it, it gives it that more lizard approach where he can slide around in the ducts, reaching around and grabbing people, which there's no way the clumsily walking Ice Warriors could do naturally. It's very clever the way it modernizes a classic Who villain and makes it work in what is a good story. And it treats the Ice Warrior as honorable, which I like. I like the final scene between him and the Doctor. I would love for the Ice Warriors to come back in a situation like that, where maybe one's armor has been destroyed or he's been stripped of it and he's running around. You know, you could have like another horror movie in space like deal, like Alien, where he's just picking people out from the shadows, maybe on a space shuttle or space station. I would love that for the Ice Warriors. Though I guess if you're going to do that, you wouldn't have to make it an Ice Warrior. You could just make it a totally new villain. So that's my question to you. Would you like to see the Ice Warriors return again in Modern Who? Or do you not trust the current production team with a classic villain like the Ice Warriors? What do you think of the Ice Warrior stories as a whole? Do you like their two Modern Who appearances they've made so far? Are you like me and you're like, well, none of them are necessarily grand slams, but none of them are bad either? Kind of how I feel on it. Comment down below and let me know what you would like to do. Whether or not you want the Icy Warriors to come back? And if so, how would you want them to come back? What kind of story would you like to see? Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. That is a big help and much appreciated. There's a link to that down there as well. I want to give a shout out to Sam, Venning, and Colin Coney, 2 of my top tier patrons. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons and both of my YouTube members. Very much appreciated. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review, I'm loving collecting these standard edition sets. They did just release the Season 2 set, so if anyone wants to send any more of those, Simon's been very generous with these. I bought one myself. He sent the other 3, but I would love to get some more if anyone wants to send any more to that P.O. box down there. I have a link to my Amazon wishlist and a link to my Amazon UK wishlist down there as well. Check those out. Most importantly, thank you for watching.